You're listening to The Unstoppables, where each week we show you how to overcome obstacles and transform the sting of failure into the reward of growth. And now, here's your host, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and CEO, Bill Wooditch.
You are watching, you're listening to that place where we turn those intentions, the ideas that you have, into dollars, into realization, into those life-changing events that make a life. And today's special guest is Paul Trapp. And when you talk about changing a life, making a life from preparation, from being able to see opportunity, from having a servant leadership mentality, one that he puts in play every day to change not only his life and his family's life, but the life and the lives of other families who work with him. Paul, welcome to The Unstoppables.
Thank you, Bill. Pleased to be here.
Well, you're the founding owner and CEO of EventPrep. That's EVNT, then the next word, prep. It's one word, Inc., a full-service meeting planning and management company that supports 17 franchisees across the United States. You're the co-author of a book I read with Stephen Davis, your partner at EventPrep. It's Prep for Success, the Entrepreneur's Guide to Achieving Your Dreams. We talked about this off air. I will tell you as an indictment of me, complete transparency, I don't read every book from every guest that's on this show. As a matter of fact, I probably read 3 out of 10, but I do peruse and cliff note. Your book caught me. I read the book in its entirety, and I think your story I found not only to be inspirational, but it's something that I think everyone in the audience can take something from and apply to make their life better. So I'm going to turn this over to you when we talk about background, and you can start where you'd like with defining moments of your story. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Bill. Well, Army guy, retired, 31 years Army. So I think that's the big chunk of my story. But it wasn't 31 straight years. There was a lot of kind of on-ramping and off-ramping throughout that period because I felt I wasn't just a soldier. I wasn't just an employee. I didn't know what I was at the time, but I knew I was a builder. And I found myself happy when I was building things. And I realized I didn't like running things. I just like building them. So at one point in my life, I was about hitting 30 years old, and I thought I was going to be a priest. I had a real calling. I thought I had a passion for my faith. I was involved in youth ministries and peer ministries, and I had a priest one day ask me, he goes, "Hey, you're doing all this great stuff out in civilian world." I was a recruiter for the military at the time, and I was winning award after award after award for being a top salesperson. And my priest said to me, he goes, "Hey, you ever think about selling God?" And that just stuck in my craw. And it was like, wow, maybe I can. Maybe, it's a way of life. I believe in the product. I can do this, So I actually discerned for a couple of years, and I got off. I off-ramped off active duty and went into the National Guard. And during that transition time, I got accepted to seminary up in St. Meinrad's in Indiana, and I was going to go be a priest. I wasn't married, didn't have kids. That was the trajectory. And then a funny thing happened to me on the way to the seminary. I met Altar Boys Gone Wild, which is my business partner, Steve Davis. And Steve was he's a cop in Central Florida and a great guy. And we became buds immediately. And I was with him a couple weeks into our friendship when I met a beautiful young lady named Kimberly. And I could tell you kind of the backstory of how that all went down, but it's in the book as well. But yeah, I had some transition time. I had a couple of months from getting out of the Army before I was supposed to start seminary. And I had a friend that owned a nightclub, and he said they fired their manager and said, "Hey, can you come in and stick the key in the door and lock up at night and until I can find someone else?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm priest, bar manager. I can figure this out. It's not in the too hard to do box." But I was a lieutenant in the National Guard. I had some leadership skills, some basic things. And so sure enough, I started doing that. And one night in this nightclub, which was a fairly large nightclub, someone pulled a gun out and shot it off up in the air. And it cleared out the nightclub. Like everyone was trampling everyone, and we didn't know if someone got shot or not. We called 911 and the police came, and Steve Davis was the police. That's my business partner. That's how I met him. He literally responded to check on his team, make sure they're all right. And he was a supervisor. And they said, "Oh, boss, you got to come in and meet this nightclub manager. He's going to be a priest." And, Steve was Catholic, pretty active in his faith. He's like, "Yeah, I think I'll be the judge of that." And he takes his seatbelt off and he gets, he starts sizing me up. And, Steve's a half half empty guy who's not going to believe it until he sees it. And I'm a half full guy, like everything's, so we balanced each other out pretty well in the friendship. But it wasn't a short time later I met my beautiful wife, Kimberly. And then divine intervention, August 24th, 1992. I'll never forget the day. I was a week and a half, 10 days away from reporting into seminary. I was a National Guard officer in Florida. I just transitioned off being a bar manager, and everything was perfect. And Hurricane Andrew came and turned South Florida upside down. There was death, carnage, there was, devastation, and National Guard got activated. So I get to go down to National Guard World down in South Florida, and I missed my start date to the seminary because I was a platoon leader at the time and needed to go down there. Ironically, I'm in the chow line down in South Florida. I've been down there 2 days, going through a tent to get fed, and look over, and there's my buddy Steve Davis. I'm like, dude, what are you doing down here? He was a cop, and they brought all the cops down there as well, just with all the things that were going on at the time. So it was our first deployment together. So that's kind of how we met originally, and that was the foundation of where it went. But I think it keeps building from there, This is the premise of the event planning piece, right? Tie it all together. I ended up being the chief of recruiting for the National Guard Bureau. So I was in charge of 4,500 recruiters, sales manager, basically, right? And I was doing meetings every week all over the country. We had regions. We had 7 regions. We had 54 different states and territories. We were, doing workshops, training workshops, quarterly reviews, annual rewards banquets, regional award banquets, rewarding top sales producers. And I spent more time in hotel contracts and planning events and working about the details of it than I was about the content, which was recruiting. We were supposed to help them recruit well, So I got a taste of it. I got a feel for it. And I was coming up on what I would consider an eligible retirement time in my life. And I called Steve and I said, dude, I know we've ran 5 other things past each other, but I think I know what I want to do. I think I want to supplement my retirement by being an event planner, because in my little slice of the pie in the Pentagon, I was spending $4 or $5 million a year in events. And I knew, gosh, if I could just get a customer like me, I'd be good to go for the rest of my retirement. I could help plan events. I was pretty good at it, and attention to detail, military, dress right, dress type thing. And he said, yeah, I can get on board with that. And so we both threw $1,500 into a kitty. We started a company, and we started practicing while we still had our jobs. He was a cop. I was in the military, and we started practicing. We'd get a customer. We'd plan it. We'd, take vacation time from our job to go deliver it. We come back, check back into our job. So it really was a kind of a side hustle in the beginning.
All right. Well, let me pause you there for a second for a takeaway, because in my book, Fail More, I write about this. You've got to be able to take risks that are intelligent. You have to consider your family. So you took, instead of jumping off that dock of security onto the boat of opportunity, you took a guarded risk. You still kept your jobs, still had some income coming in. And I think that's important for the burgeoning entrepreneur to listen to, because instead of just getting off and jumping out irresponsibly, you're taking a responsible move forward, and you had some substance, you had some experience in that thing which you were then going to promote into something bigger for yourself, correct?
Absolutely. So we took that guarded risk. And even when I transitioned off active duty, when you get off active duty, you have a military retirement, right? So I literally had a nice, comfortable retirement at a fairly young age. I was still in my 40s, right? So I was like, okay, this is good. I can take this and have a parachute or a safety net type thing. So it allowed me to go a little more, take a little more risk. But we started, I remember getting our first contract. Our first contract was $80,000. And Steve and I, we used to vacation together with our families. We were in Colorado when we actually got the call, and it was a government deal. And we got a call, and the government contracting officer said, hey, Steve Davis, just want to confirm, blah, blah, blah. We got your bid, yeah, we're going to select you. So we need to have a kickoff meeting. And he got off the phone, and he, like Tigger, jumping up and down, he picks me up. I'm a little larger than him. If you can picture, just for this, the Flintstones, I'm Fred Flintstone, he's Barney Rubble. So that's how our relationship is, personality wise, everything, right? And he picks me up, and he's bouncing me up and down and running around the deck there in Colorado. And we were so happy we won that $80,000 contract, and we delivered it well. And, I guess what I've learned about business, there's basically 3 phases, right? There's infancy, adolescence, and maturity. We were in our infancy. So you're the chief everything officer. And, the only risk I took at the time was I was working 2 full-time jobs. I was in my job, and I was giving most of my time to my passion, right? And then still I had young kids. So I was trying to do hey, I'm going to give the kids a bath tonight. And we're going to do homework and we're going to take, I'm going to help prepare dinner and clean up the mess. But at the end of the day, the transition went with a guarded risk, but it also allowed us to step and grow and make mistakes, right? And learn from our mistakes along the way. Because I'd never owned a business before, really. I'd been a soldier or a cop or, all my life.
How do you avoid the fourth category? You talked about infancy, adulthood, maturity. The fourth category for a company on the bell curve of evolution is senescence, where you're at a certain point where that clock has already struck midnight, it's 3 a.m, you hung on too late. You got this energy and enthusiasm. How are you avoiding that? Okay, here I am in the decline.
My first $80,000 to that 10-year anniversary, we went from an $80,000 contract, and just 2 years later, we won an $80 million contract with the federal government. And it was an $81 million contract. So from 80,000 to 81 million overnight, we grew from 5 people to 45 people. So it was explosive growth.
Well, there's another story in there that's, I think, important for the listener as well, because you did, and Frederick the Great, we talked about this off air. Frederick the Great is famous for audacity, at all times audacity. Really get out there, push it, be aggressive, move. But you also have to be prepared. You can't just jump to make those opportunities happen. So you went from 80,000 and you're celebrating, you're picking each other up like you just won the national championship game. And there's no one on the sideline handing you cash, right? Yeah. So you just won that. And now you're going to bid on an $81 million contract. That is the elephant.
Yeah.
Huge overreach. You've never been there before, but you're playing big. You're preparing. You're doing the same work it took, the same preparation, the same thoroughness, the attention to detail that it took to get the $80,000 contract. That's how you bang the 81, change the entire trajectory of your life. Let me take you back to sales, because that's what you live today, to right now. What do you think is the key to successful selling?
Relationship 101, listening, right? I mean, you go to any sales course and learn, right? Everyone thinks to be a good talker. Everyone thinks you got to be a fast talker, or I got that. I've heard, that guy can talk a dog off a meat wagon, or sell ice cubes to Eskimos, or whatever. They have this. It's not all about the verbal, your ability to communicate verbally. It's the listening skills and asking questions and learning. And the more I've learned about people, and the more questions I ask, the more the walls come down. It's simply relationship 101. And I will say this, no matter whether I'm hiring a salesperson or I'm hiring an operations person or anything, what I tend to look for when I do my recruiting is I look for an entrepreneur. And I'm sure you've probably heard the buzzword before, but I want that. I don't want an employee that does, 8 to 5, punches the clock and goes home and da-da-da. I also don't want someone that's going to kill themselves. I know no one's going to love the business as much as I love the business.
Right.
But I found if you find those hybrid entrepreneurs that are employees, we call them entrepreneurs, they take ownership of it and they own it. And I got people on my team that I can throw footballs to all day long, and they just amaze me with what they do with those footballs. I don't have to tell them.
You're the second person that has mentioned the word intrapreneur. I always thought I was the first, but you might have been the first, because that's what we try to capture here. And I think before you can become an entrepreneur, you need to be an intrapreneur inside of a company, learning those things, those skills, the requisite fundamental things you need to do to be able to apply to be a successful entrepreneur. We're huge on intrapreneurship. That's what we sell here as a company. And I want to go back to what you said about selling, which I call enrollment. It all comes from being able to listen, because you don't know what to apply. You don't know what the need is, what the concern is, what the dream is, unless you're able to listen. And I made that mistake and blanked it up for almost a decade until I learned, wait a minute, I started to enroll when I started to listen. And I always focused on the heart first before I looked at the wallet. And maybe it wasn't a good fit with me. It wasn't the right connection. I was great with that. I was transparently honest about that. It's not a good time. It's not a good fit. I'm not for everyone. I'm an acquired taste. So, but the people that I'm for tend to stay. And when I'm not, you can't partner with everybody and be successful. want to talk about another one you talked about, and that is uniqueness. You talked about going out of your way to go to Tiffany's. You know, you could get jewelry somewhere else, but you want to bring your wife home some Tiffany's, and there's an allure to getting something from Tiffany's. And you talk about being a market disruptor. Tell me how you're a disruptor, what your position is, and why people will go out of their way to work with you.
Yeah, so that's multi-pronged, right? So we call it being a destination store, right? In the book, we talk about a scenario where, there's 1,000 jewelry stores within a stone throw of me here in Central Florida. I could literally go and, buy my wife diamond earrings for the anniversary or something right at the mall. I don't have to go far, but the closest Tiffany's to me is, 60 miles away, and my wife likes that little blue teal bag that comes with the branding of that. And, she knows when I walk through the store with the little, walk through the door with the little blue bag, she goes, oh, I know something good's about to happen here. There's just a Pavlovian response to that, right? Type thing. So why do I, as a consumer, get in a car and drive 60 miles out of my way past 20 other, jewelry stores on the way? And oh, by the way, I think diamonds are rated by an industry that says they're, clear, yellow, I1, I3, whatever. There's a standard, there's a standard, there's a standard. So I can probably get the same clear I1 diamond at either place, right? But there's just something about the way they package it and the aura of that. So it's a destination store. When we started our business, we said, how do we become that destination store? How do we become the one that they'll go out of their way to do business with us? And I think, God, we've struggled with this answer for a long time. People go, well, we're just better than everyone else, or we care more than everyone else. And that's the standard thing, right? And I think what's made us different through the time is the people, the recruitment of the people, right? Our pricing is competitive, right? You'll pay more to go to Tiffany's. I think you'll pay a decent, amount of money to come to us just as you would any other event planner, right? But at the end of the day, it's how we do it. It's our experience. It's the talent that we attract, right? And when we talk about being a disruptor in the book, what we're really talking about is recruiting our franchisees, because in our world, it's not even being a disruptor with our customers. It was, how do we find those 17 people that were willing to quit their jobs and come join our team and become part of our family? And so I've got franchisees in Seattle and Syracuse, New York, and Sugar Land, Texas, and Atlanta, Georgia, all over, doing the EventPrep thing all over the place, right? So how did I disrupt their world to get them to become me? And how do I distinguish myself to be different? Because there's some big box companies out there that do what I do. Because we're a very fragmented industry. There's a lot of mom and pops out there that do event planning. Anyone can say, hey, I'm an event planner. I plan my kid's birthday party, so I'm an event planner. But at the end of the day, there's some heavy hitters. There's some, Sam Waltons, Ray Krocs out there that have been doing it in our industry for a long time.
Let's talk about a heavy hit, because you're going to leave out. This is your time. Your book is full of humility and wisdom, and it's a great combination. But this is your humble brag time. This is where I'm going to let people know where to find you. I'm also going to say what your big swing was with George Bush. You did the first event for him, right? After the presidency, his first public speech, right, as a private citizen,
was us, yeah.
So why don't you talk about that?
So, when you do an event, you can do an event, a birthday party or a wedding or something, but the types of events that we're involved in, presidential type speakers, big events, DC. We just did an event with the Secretary of the VA in Nashville, Tennessee. But George Bush, when he first got out of the office, he transitioned, went back to Texas. He got a job, and being a husband and a father and in his home. He didn't really have to be the president anymore. And right. I think it's a cold awakening to go from the most powerful man in the country one day to the next day walking behind your dog in the neighborhood picking up poop because, you're taking your dog for a walk. It's a humbling transition, I'm sure. But we were honored to be blessed to be able to plan one of his first events when he was speaking at a Marine Corps event in DC, about 600 Marine Corps officers. And when you coordinate something of that level, when you're flying the former president in his first time speaking, there's coordination with the, Secret Service, the president's band, the, background checks on the staff that's coming in to serve the food. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we're doing. And ironically, Steve is a CID agent in the Army Reserve. So he's a bodyguard in the Army Reserve. So his actually interaction with them was perfect. The operational part of that all lined up. But we got to do that and pulling off a presidential event. It was kind of one of our taglines early on. That was probably about our 5th year in business when we did it. And I said, we had it on our website for a while. It's like, basically, if we're good enough to plan events for the President of the United States, we think we can handle your event. We were not that cocky in the verbiage, but we were pretty much going like, we're good enough for him. We're good enough to.
Where do we find you? What's your website?
So if you're trying to find something about event planning, it's just eventprep.com. Very simple.
Eventprep.com.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about Steve and I, or if you think you're an entrepreneur trapped in an employee's body, then just visit us at davistrapp.com. And davistrapp.com is where we help other people kind of, do that transformation from employee to
davistrapp.com. And you've got a unique compensation model, which if people would look to explore, which really positions them as an entrepreneur based on your funding, which is a great model. And
that's the disrupting part.
It is. And I told you up front, I said, well, I could talk with you for 3 hours, but we've only got 30 minutes. So we're going to wrap it with a couple of questions to you. What was your biggest failure and what did you take away and learn from that?
If I just right from the gut, we started in really heavy in the government world, and we put all our eggs in one basket, and we had a lot of government business. We were doing $50 million a year in government business. It was crazy good. And then in 2014, the government shut down. Every book has a dark chapter, right? I mean, the real estate market, the bubble burst, the dot-com crashed, all the tech companies went belly up. Well, for us, at the time, President Obama was in office, and the government shut down, and then all government events were ceased and desist while they were trying to figure out funding, right? And then at the same time, there was nothing to do with us or nothing to do with our clients, but there was a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse going on in government world, making the front line of the Washington Post. GSA had a big party out in Las Vegas, and there was $800,000 spent on like mind readers and clowns and government funds. Anyways, so President Obama signed an executive order and said, shut down all government event planning. So the only thing that we did was a government event planning, and the government shut down, and then they issued an executive order to not do any more events until they could come up with a plan that would avoid fraud, waste, and abuse. So we went from, 1 year, we went from $50 million in sales down to $6 million in sales overnight. So just as much as we traject up in like a rocket ship going up from 80,000 to 80 million, it wasn't just a couple of years later when the government shut down. And that caused me, that was the biggest mistake, that kind of learning aha moment for me to diversify, right? To not have all my eggs in that one basket. So now we have a very robust commercial, not-for-profit associations have meetings, commercials, corporations. We have some of our franchisees focus on college sporting teams and moving them around and helping them with their events, and wedding planners, everything. So from A to Z, now we're much more. So if the government were to shut down next week, we flinch a little bit, but it wouldn't be what we did back in 2014.
Studies show that people have more regret for those things they didn't do than for things they did. Any regrets?
None.
Love it.
I was a lieutenant colonel. I was a lieutenant colonel in the military when I was getting out. I started as an enlisted guy, went through 13 years as an enlisted guy, then switched over, went to OCS, became an officer. And at the end, I didn't think I was going to make colonel. Colonel was like the full bird. That was the big thing. So I didn't see colonel in my future. So that's why I actually planned my exit strategy by starting the business. And I did get picked up for colonel right on the way out the door. And I was killing me. My ego wanted it. Everything. It was extra money every month. It was extra money in my retirement. And I looked at my wife and I looked at my business partner and I said, I want this so badly, but I want it for all the wrong reasons. What I really want is to grow my business and to start my business and I won't tell you how things work, but at the end of the day, I ended up writing the next year a six-figure check to the IRS to pay my taxes. And I realized the extra couple $1,000s I would have made a month as a colonel wouldn't, so financially it was a very wise decision. I got to chase my dreams. So yeah, I don't have any regrets.
It's the way to live your life.
Yeah.
His book is full of those type of stories, and it's rich learning for the intrapreneur or the entrepreneur. His book is Prep for Success, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Achieving Your Dreams. My special guest, it's been a pleasure and an honor, sir. Paul Trapp, the CEO of EventPrep, Inc. Thank you, sir.